from any device. I don't really understand what benefit would that really get, but as I said, we are in the early stages of this technology. So by the time, I'm sure that people will find a lot of applications for the kind of services what Apple plans to do on the cloud. So at this moment, everything sounds very fine, but let's go back to the challenges and issues. So IDC's enterprise panel in August of 2008 uh, asked their customers to rate the challenges and issues which they felt were there on the cloud or an on-demand model. And as I had pointed out in the earlier issues of this presentation, that security remains the topmost challenge, followed by performance, availability, hard to integrate with in-house IT, not enough ability to customize, worried on demand will cost more, bringing back in-house will be difficult, regulatory requirements prohibits the cloud, and not enough major suppliers yet. So these were some of the concerns, but security remains the topmost concern. So what are the three key areas? Forrester says that companies should consider security and privacy. They should look at this compliance and they should look at the legal and contractual issues. So in security and privacy is concerns such as data protection, operational integrity, vulnerability management, business continuity, disaster recovery, identity management will be top on the list. Privacy is another key concern. Data that the service collects about the users, which is the events, logs, etc., gives the provider valuable marketing information, but also could lead to misuse and violation of privacy. One way for the customers to evaluate a provider's security and privacy practices is through auditing, which can help to lend some visibility into the vendor's internal operations. However, auditing goes against the very grain of cloud computing, which attempts to abstract away the operational details by providing you easy interface to use. And again, a cloud provider may not allow internal audits, but could give you some provision for performing an external audit. If you look at compliance, the data privacy and business continuity are two big items for compliance. A number of privacy laws and governmental regulations have specific stipulation on how data should be handled, how business continuity should be planned. For example, the European Union and Japan privacy laws demand that private data, email, is a form of private data recognized by the European Union, must be stored and handled in data center located either in the European Union or in Japan territories. So government regulations that explicitly demand business continuity planning include the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or the HIPAA, the Basel II, or the payment card industry, etc. If you look at from a legal or contractual issues, liability and intellectual properties are just some of the issues. Liability is not always clear cut when it comes to cloud services. Again, goes same for IP, which is intellectual property. Yeah. For some of the services, the IP is well understood. The cloud provider owns the infrastructure and the applications, while the user owns their data and computational results. In other cases, the division is not very clear. In software mashups or software components as a service, it may be difficult to say who owns what and what rights the customer has over the provider, etc., etc. So these are a couple of areas which are challenging. Now let's focus on what is also happening. We are seeing some cloud outages, or what I like to call it as cloud tages. Companies are affected by some other companies. So Dot Cloud is one of the providers who utilizes EC2, and here is the website which has put up what Dot Cloud is doing to overcome the issues because of the EC2 outages. Now, essentially, they have also said that they're restoring from snapshots and backups, and they have requested their customers to be patient for at least a day. So, yes, you lose a lot of time. One day could be a lot of time. Or companies like Iron Mountain AdMountain, which started their virtual file store, an archive service platform, which are essentially their storage services. So AdMountain on 11th of April, we found this news which says that they plan to stop. So they've confirmed that they are stopping these services because there is not much of adoption. And if you were one of those early adopters, then hey, this could be a challenge. So yesterday, Amazon's EC2, there was a huge outage. So let me just read this for you. So Amazon's cloud computing failures began early Thursday morning and continued into Friday, April 22nd. So well, that's 2 days of outage. So Quora.com, Reddit.com, GroupMe.com, Scavenger.com, all websites were affected and they posted to their users, including what we saw on the Doubt Cloud as well. So most of these websites were down for hours and some of them were only partly operational. Now, Amazon also has customers like the social networking site Foursquare, but also hosts Pfizer, Netflix, and Nasdaq. While the design of EC2 has been to cope up with the giant traffic spikes, like the pre-Christmas shopping in December, what Amazon essentially said that why this outage happened was because of a networking glitch which made its storage volumes automatically create backups of themselves, filling up storage capacity and causing connectivity issues. Wow. So outages are here to stay. So if you're just planning to go on the cloud, do expect outages. And this is what I want to also bring to you, where the Gartner's VP and distinguished analyst Thomas Pittman tells that we should be expecting failures in the cloud. So it's not something which is going to be up and running 100%. So even they've told you that it's 99.9 or it's 99 or it's 98%. So do, expect failures. And just a gaffe which I found on one of the websites which says failure as a service. So that was funny. Again, when Amazon was down a year ago, so which is on May 9th of 2010, one of the users of Amazon did send a mail saying, and this is available on the Amazon's own web forum, which says, Amazon EBS sucks, I lost all my data. And one more cloud-based ID failure on the slide, which essentially hit the Virgin Blue flights in Australia. So an ID failure disrupted travel for 50,000 customers of Virgin Blue Airlines in Australia. This is something which could be valid for all cloud users. Let's look at the cloud nitty-gritties. Well, the cloud can be good, the cloud can be bad, but CIO.com says that how you should be avoiding the poisonous cloud contracts. Now, when the cloud vendors are coming, it's important to understand what they are putting in there and what is acceptable. Again, if you're dealing with a cloud provider which is not in your country, it is very important to understand that which country's laws will finally take over in case you choose to sue your provider or vice versa. Again, one more article which says how the cloud can put you out of business. So with the SME market, which this article talks about, how do you recover from the failure? So again, it goes back to how do you tie up your recovery point. Again, what have you signed in that particular contract which tells you that what are the resources available to you for recovering from failure. Now, decoding the fine print is very, very important. And here is what Cloud Tweaks has to say. They say, personally, I have an experience with two situations that still makes me shudder. One that happened to me directly and one to a client. The personal experience dealt with a hosted email. In this situation, I had moved my business from a self-hosted email solution to a hosted exchange service. About 2 years into the service, while upgrading systems, number of email accounts suddenly had no email in them. The users' carefully organized email inboxes were now empty, and all of the information in those emails was gone. It took a lot of phone calls and the power of the press to eventually figure out what had happened and restore the data. Though in the initial contact with the lead vendor's tech support, they were happy to offer the solution of restoring each of the missing mailboxes for $500 per mailbox, despite the fact that the mailboxes disappeared while following their direction for the upgradation or migration. A lot of digging eventually led me to the fact that my service provider was a reseller for another vendor's email hosting service, and through further investigation, I determined that my vendor had elected not to use the actual provider's first tier support services, which meant that the techs I have been dealing with knew less about Exchange Server than I did. So that's a pretty much interesting email, which was a pretty much interesting article on the Cloud Tweaks, which I came across. Now, Forrester, or rather, the Yankee report on this slide tells you about cloud computing services fine print, disappointment forecasted. So they say that the contracts are full of disclaimers, ambiguous uptime guarantees, and uncertain policies and compliance claims. So be prepared to work with vendors, be prepared to work with the providers who are not going to tell you the entire truth, or they may just be telling you what they want to tell you. So you must be prepared to decode the entire story. So be prepared to read a lot beyond just the technical print. You may have to read under the legal print. So be prepared to read under each and every line. So some concluding remarks which I have, and this is the last part of the cloud computing series. Thanks for tuning in, but let me just leave you with, we saw the web boom or the dot-com boom in the year 2000, and then we saw the web or the dot-com bust in 2001. But we have seen that web has improved. It's not that companies wiped away. The amount of usage of the internet has only increased. People have found various applications for the internet, and it has grown. So yes, we will see cloud boom. Maybe we'll see the cloud bust as well. But in the long run, my understanding is that cloud is here to stay. So it's not something which is going to go away. There's a lot of money which is invested by people into the cloud, and it will become a huge success. It's just a matter of time. However, just remember to check your service level agreements, check for what is the compliance which your vendor has, how will you meet your compliance with the vendor A, B or C. So just don't go by a simple tendering process which says please give me the cheapest cost. It's important to understand how you're going to meet the needs of your organization, of your regulator, etc. Read the fine print. So don't be in a hurry to sign it. Find out who's the vendor, what is their backing, and what is their seriousness. That doesn't mean that you don't go with a small vendor. Sometimes the small vendors may give you excellent service, but be prepared. Some of these vendors may just stop services on the way if they find they are not profitable enough. So be prepared that in case you were one of the early adopters and you developed your entire system around your cloud provider, be prepared that they may just stop the services. So do your own homework. It's important. Do not just rely on derived information. Do not think that you can probably just learn from what the vendors have to tell you. Try to get a third party or a consultant to work with you, because these guys typically get in additional exposure. They are able to think in areas which probably you are not able to think. So that's all from me, guys. The next session will be on IP version 6. Now that's Internet Protocol version 6. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thanks a lot.